Hi, and welcome back to the Digital PR Summit. I'm really excited to have Marina Plummer from Kaizen join us for the next session. And Marina is going to be talking about hacks to ideate, outreach, and manage your time smartly in a fast-paced agency. I'm really excited for this session, especially given some of the really great content that's been shared on Twitter in the past 24 hours on some of these things, especially on the terminology of fast-paced. So again, another really important topic that for us all to address, how to manage our time efficiently, make sure we're not burning out, make sure we're not overworking. So Marina, I'm going to hand over to you. Really excited for your session, and I'll see you back here very shortly for a Q&A session after your talk.
Perfect. Thank you, James. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's having an amazing morning. There's been some incredible talks so far and more to come this afternoon. So make sure you're tuning in. And as well, no pressure for me. I hope that you can learn something in the next half an hour. I just want to make sure that everyone can see my screen. I guess they can, so I'm just going to carry on. But essentially what I'm going to be talking about today is going through hacks to outreach, ideate, and manage your time smartly in a fast-paced agency. So a quick introduction to me then. So hello, I'm Marina. I'm a senior digital PR manager at Kaizen. I joined PR in around 2017. I'm a lover of CrossFit, although I'm not very good at it. I love Thai food. During my lunch breaks, you'll tend to find me watching YouTube clips of This Morning. And recently I went to the Highlands, which you can see an image of on the right-hand side, and loved it so much I nearly got a Highlands related tattoo. So let's talk about agency life. So it's pretty fucking busy, isn't it? And as digital PRs, we're often known for wearing lots of different hats. So for me personally, I love doing a little bit of everything. I love the ideation side of things. I love the client side of things, the management side of things, the pitch side of things. I love it all. And often we get asked to specialize in what our favorite part is, go into that area. But for me, I feel like I'm still at that stage where I want to be learning as much as possible about absolutely everything. But because of that, that means that I could be doing any of these things in just one day. So you've got things like outreach, outreach strategy, ideation, idea scope out sessions, client meetings, writing press releases, on-site copy, pitches, influencer comms, personal development, the development of people within my team, and project plans and strategy. So looking at this, even I'm thinking, how on earth do I all get it done in one day? But there are ways to power through your to-do list successfully. And yes, there's ways to do this without staying late. We've all done it before, it sucks, and it shouldn't be a part of what you do. So throughout this talk, I'm going to be really focusing on time management and how you can use it as your ultimate weapon to deliver your work each day and thrive in the fast-paced culture of agency life. And whilst there is no magic answer, so unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get you all follow links on nationals or pull data sets in a matter of minutes, I am able to provide you with tips and reminders. Some you might already know, but hopefully you do learn something along the way, or you're reminded of something that will help you manage your time better and have the most productive day you possibly can. So in terms of an agenda then, so I'm going to be covering off kind of three areas of what we do on a daily basis that takes up a lot of time. So we've got outreach, ideation, and overall work-life admin, which takes up a surprising amount of time when you actually look at it a little bit closer. So in terms of outreach, so firstly, it's really, really important. It's the absolute crux of what we do. It's how we get our brands out there. It's how we get coverage. It's how we get links, which then improve search terms and ranks and all sorts of things like that. But secondly, outreach shouldn't be underestimated because it can take time to get right because it is really difficult. So my first tip is investing your time in the right place. So I put together a bit of a would you rather scenario. And essentially, would you rather spend 10 minutes writing a rush pitch email because you're a little bit stressed for time, and then you end up outreaching it for weeks on end with little success or links? Or on the flip side, would you rather invest that 30 minutes of your time perfecting that email, making sure it's as strong as it possibly can be, to then see you get links in a matter of days, if not hours? So hopefully the answer is a little bit of a no-brainer, and it takes me onto my second tip, which is time management is about thinking about the bigger picture. So we all have manic to-do lists, and it can be quite challenging to take a step back and actually think about what will actually save me time in the long run. So that 30 minutes that you end up spending on an outreach email rather than rushing it will save you hours, if not days, of wasted time, and not to mention wasted contacts. Another thing as well is that I think a lot of us can feel stressed when we say that we've got an hour to outreach a campaign. We haven't done much of it earlier on in the week, and then just cramming in as many contacts as we can in the space of an hour to make sure that enough is going out. So I think it's really important that we just take a step back for a moment. If you're in that situation and you're stressing and you're not getting any links, take a step back, take a day off of outreach for that campaign potentially, and just work on your email templates, see what's going wrong, see if you can add expert comments, see if you can add case studies, tweak the angle, speak to other people to perfect your email, because one day off actually will save you so much more time in the long run. So tip number 3 is working with others to reduce your time. So don't forget that, we're a team, you've got other people to rely on to help you with the workload, and it can literally be them helping you and it taking them literally about 10 seconds to support you. So something that we've introduced at Kaizen is something called the headline Slack tester. And it's essentially where we test our headlines to see which ones essentially your colleagues would click on if they were a journalist. So this is what it looks like. So just for context, so Slack is a great way to get a high volume of people's opinions and get it in a really short amount of time. What we do is we come up with a number of different headlines and we assign an emoji to them. We pop it into like a general channel or a digital PR channel, and then whoever or whatever emoji and headline you like best is the one that you react with. So instantly you can see kind of which are the most popular, and that can literally be done in a couple of minutes. Another thing that you can do is actually improve your skills as a digital PR from doing things like this that will improve your skills in literally a matter of minutes. So we've got an example here where we've got 3 different examples about a puppy related campaign for Moonpig. And I'll just read out one of the top ones. So puppy love, dog birthday parties are becoming the next big social media trend. And actually, not many people reacted to it, and we could tell that something wasn't quite right. So one of us suggested, is there any data or stats we could include? And all of a sudden, it literally took 3 minutes. We suddenly see dog birthdays generate 62.7 million TikTok views. Here's how to join the latest trend. So my next tip is all about how little and often can drive success. So time management sometimes is about making gradual preparations for success whenever we have a spare moment. So in between tasks, we're always kind of jumping from task to task. Sometimes we have a spare 15 minutes, sometimes we have a spare half an hour, and all of a sudden the time goes because we're kind of faffing around on our emails or going through monday.com or something like that, and we end up wasting quite a lot of time when it all adds up. So a way that you can utilize that time, this is just one example, there'll be lots of other ones out there, is to create a quote bank for your clients. So reactive PR is huge at the moment. It's definitely boomed since the outbreak of COVID, and I think a lot more agencies are doing it. They're including it in their offering, but it can be really stressful for both you and your client to turn around. So we've all been in that situation where a journalist has said, right, I've got 20 minutes, like, can you pull me together a quote? And you're in the middle of a meeting thinking, oh my God, like, where am I going to find this time? And then your client is probably also in a meeting getting on with other things. And then it just becomes quite anxiety inducing, stressful, and it's just not the most enjoyable experience. So this is an example of a quote bank, and essentially having a quote bank drives an always on approach with the companies that we work with. It can be kind of appreciate that with reactive, sometimes you can't predict certain things that are going to get outreached in the media, but there are kind of key awareness days, key government announcements, for example, that are going to be coming out at certain times within the year that you can start preparing for to save you time on the actual day. So the best things about a quote bank are that anyone in the team can add to it. So when they have a spare 5 minutes, we can review them internally. That's absolutely fine. In terms of client access, so we also give clients access to the document so they can make amends really quickly and easily. And it also means that nothing is lost in an email thread, which is the absolute worst. And also it just saves you that any approval delays for a reactive opportunity and saves you from missing out on that opportunity as a whole. So tip number 5 is not letting a campaign go on for too long without success. So if a campaign isn't getting off to the right start, it's important that you take action at an early enough point to catch what's going wrong. So at Kaizen, if we launched a campaign, usually after about 2 weeks of outreach and us not receiving much coverage or minimal coverage or just mentions and no follows, we tend to hold something called a next steps meeting, where we get about 3 to 4 people involved in a really quick turnaround meeting to look at a campaign that they've never seen before, give it a fresh take, and kind of add pointers in terms of what they think we should do moving forward. So again, it's kind of tapping you back into that point about thinking about the bigger picture, taking a step back, right, a campaign isn't working, I could outreach it for another 2 weeks, or actually I could sort out a next steps meeting. It would take me 15 minutes and then I've got some amazing new angles that I can go out with. So this is an example of what it looks like. It's super simple. What we tend to include is the launch date, the number of emails sent, the angles that you've tried so far and their open rates, and then thinking about like why you think it's not working, and then working with your new team to note down all actions that you can then kind of put into focus for a new strategy. Tip number 6, I think is a really, really important one, and I've definitely felt this within outreach, and it's maintaining momentum and enthusiasm within your team. So outreaching campaign that isn't getting many links, or it's getting, not a lot of coverage, we haven't had many responses from journalists or any feedback at all, it can be really demoralizing, especially when you're outreaching it for weeks on end and potentially you're outreaching it by yourself. So if you're a manager, I think the first thing is just to kind of check in with people and actually ask how they're feeling about it. I feel like if you're feeling demotivated about it, that will also reflect in your performance. So it's always good to check in with who's outreaching it, how they're getting on with it, and then also ask them if they'd like to swap. So in agencies, there are a lot of campaigns going on everywhere. People are outreaching things for 2-3 weeks at a time. Just swap them over if they're happy to, and they're confident, that they can maybe, provide something new to a new idea, then let them swap. It's all about just keeping outreach fresh. And it's really impressive as well when you see kind of like links and warm leads and coverage start coming through as soon as you start swapping the people that are on the outreach. Tip number 7 then is investing your time to set expectations for your team. So for bigger clients, what we tend to do is set up weekly outreach check-ins. For big clients, especially at Kaizen, we work with international markets. So not only have you, say, got 5 campaigns to produce, but you've got them to produce in the German market and the Italian market. So then it becomes 15 campaigns and it all becomes quite overwhelming. So what you can do as a manager, just to make sure that kind of content is being delivered, everything is being done to make sure that kind of you're doing the best that you can to get campaigns coverage, is putting in a 5 to 10 minute one-to-one to discuss angles each week, the contacts that they've been to and their plan of action. So it's just important to note that this isn't to catch people out at all. It's actually to just check in, see how you can support them and also achieve success at a quicker rate as a team. As well, what it helps you to do as a manager is it helps you set realistic deadlines. It helps you manage client expectations. So having that 5-minute check-in once a week with everyone that is kind of outreaching each campaign can get you on top of everything, and then feedback to the client, know exactly where you are on everything, and have a clear plan of action. And it also encourages accountability within your team as well. My 8th tip, is the penultimate one before we move on to ideation, is personalizing emails. So is it worth the time? So just really quickly, so when I talk about personalization, I'm not talking about the first name of a journalist. I feel like that is just generally quite a standard expectation. It's polite to include the journalist's first name. But what I am talking about is actually researching into a journalist, including lots of articles that they've written, looking at their tweets. So I think that this is an amazing idea. It's an amazing tactic to make sure that you're finding the right journalists, and may be really useful if you're sending out exclusives, for example. But realistically, in a fast-paced environment, do we actually have time to be doing this for 100, 200, 300 contacts? Probably not. And I think it's just important to remind yourself about where your time is best placed. So ultimately, don't forget that 99% of the journalists care about being sent a great story. So don't sweat the smushy stuff if you're stressed for time. Tip number 9 then is stop wasting your time on a dead campaign. So if you've tried all of kind of the tips that I've mentioned and other ones, and however you kind of do it at your agency, sometimes the most important thing to save you time is to call it a day, see that a campaign, you've done everything that you can and you're still not getting links, and move on, because actually the time that you're wasting trying to make it work when it clearly isn't could be spent on a potential replacement campaign as well. So yeah, nobody's got time to waste on a dead campaign. So moving on to ideation then. So like outreach, ideation is really important, but with ideation, sometimes you can be better at it than other times. But there are some ways to help you make the most of your time and produce great campaigns, even if you're not in the best creative mindset. So the first thing I want to talk about is express ideations, because not only do they save you time because they're shorter, but they also save you headspace, which can have an impact on how productive you are. So I don't know if either of you have agreed to an hour-long ideation, and then it comes to the day, you see it in your calendar and you're like, oh my God, I just don't have time for this. Like, how am I going to fit in all of my to-do list? How am I going to fit in all my client work? I've got other priorities. And 1 hour slots on our calendars can be really anxiety inducing because we're busy bees. Oh, I'll just go back. So the reason why express ideations are so great is that they also help manage your headspace. They'll put people in a better mood. Things become more manageable, a half an hour slot in terms of a full hour out of your 7.5 hour day. Which also means that less people are likely to decline. We've all had people decline ideations because they're too busy, they're rammed, but actually they'll be much more likely to join if they know it's only a 30-minute slot. As digital PRs, we hate wasting time, so people do appreciate the essence of an express ideation, there being no faff. And then also the fact that they're express ideations means that the dynamic is slightly different, which again just changes things up every once in a while and kind of promotes and strikes new chords of creativity. So my second tip is understanding how people work best, which is key for efficiency, especially during ideation. So a meeting isn't always the answer. I can't imagine that Bill Gates, for example, came up with all of his ideas in a set time between 3 and 4 p.m. One day that he delegated to, coming up with a global empire, basically. So we asked the team at Kaizen what they thought about getting creative. And shockingly, actually, only 10% of us felt our most creative during an actual ideation session. 70% of us feel creative outside, and 40% of us feel most creative in the morning, which I definitely feel. I'm definitely one of those people. So the importance of understanding people's optimum creativity times is about working around kind of how to make an ideation work that is flexible to everybody to get the best that you can out of every single person. So a really simple way that we've kind of tried and tested at Kaizen is to pop a brief on Slack or organize a quick 5 to 10 minute meeting, briefing a number of people on what you need as well, because it isn't an actual, you're not booking in an ideation, you can invite as many people as you like. And essentially what you do is you outline your brief, you set a deadline of around 24 to 48 hours for people to go off and come up with their own ideas in their own way. And essentially you just sit back, let the magic happen and let people choose how and like the way that they ideate, because you still get the same results and actually you get better results because you're tailoring it to the best ways that people think of concepts. So tip number 3 then is having a constant stream of creativity in things like Slack channels can help your skills without you even realizing. The only thing about this is just not to spend so much time in it that you get lost in a content hole and your day just gets, gone basically. So essentially it does wonders without you even realizing. It's exposing you to content that actually might eventually or then lead to a campaign that you'd never even thought of that could be really successful. So it's always just good for you, for juniors, to kind of have a constant stream of kind of creative content to see kind of like, what you like, and also to get people to understand what's being covered and what's being spoken about in the media. This is just an example from one of our amazing managers, Amy. It was just an example that I really enjoyed about a hair expert studying Prince Harry's crown to answer his dad rumours. So tip number 4 is about saving time in the long run. Again, we're thinking about that bigger picture and kind of increasing the skills of everyone as digital PRs, and being really aware of media trends. So chances are if a journalist is covering a topic or a trend, or you've seen a few articles about it, chances are they could be interested in a campaign that is similar. So it may seem counterintuitive, but actually setting up an ideation that doesn't think about the client at all, but actually thinks about key news trends, whether it's in the energy space, for example, like what's going on as well in like the petrol crisis at the moment, but kind of ideating on different news trends rather than the client can actually really improve your awareness and your creative skill and finding good stories as a digital PR. So I would really suggest doing this. Again, it can be kind of like an ad hoc thing, something that you do once every quarter to just encourage people to start thinking about the important things, which is how to tap in, how to get your client talking about kind of key trends and key topics in the media. So this is just an example of how this works and why it can work so well. So we had a client, in terms of the format, it's a wealth analysis. We've been seeing these for years now in terms of how much they earn on the likes of social media. The reason that it did so well and the reason why we did it is because the types of publications that this client wanted, all they were talking about were OnlyFans here, there and everywhere. So we thought, okay, let's do a campaign on it. Didn't take very long to do. And we got some really great results from it. So 62 follow links, 110 pieces of coverage, and actually the quality of the links was strong as well with a domain rating of 50. So this is my final tip for the ideation kind of section. And it's the scope out technique. So at some agencies, so we all come up with our ideas, we all vote for them, and then it's often left to one, if not two people to scope these ideas out in their rawest form, and then all of a sudden produce them into these digital PR magical concepts that are ready to kind of go out to the media. And that is a huge level of work, and that is a lot of pressure to just put on one or two people. So essentially what I wanted to suggest was getting between 2 to 4 members of the company to actually spend around 15 to 30 minutes commenting on the ideas once we've kind of got them in order of like the most voted, for example. So commenting on about 10 to 20 of the most voted ideas, kind of really picking them apart, asking about how the methodology will work, asking if we can potentially pivot it to a slightly different angle, include a different piece of data that we might find and copy and paste it into our notes. And essentially what you're doing is you're not only splitting the workload, but you're actually getting a better idea off the back of it because you're involving more people. So this is just an example of how it looks. So we have all of our ideas populated on the left-hand side, and then just lots of different comments about how we can make it work. So challenging the methodology. Actually, if we're not a fan of it, just thinking, actually, I don't think it's overly strong. Like, what's the headline? I'm not really sure about it. Is it right for the client? Is it going to work within the time frame that we have? And it kind of just helps people, it helps that process along the way and takes the pressure off of one person and ultimately leads you to coming up with a better idea than you did in the first place. So moving on then to work-life management. So tip number 1 is all about inbox zero. So I previously worked at ERA and I had one of the most influential kind of training sessions about work-life management there by Paddy Mugan. And essentially it's all about how you can be productive, clear your headspace, and actually how and why you're spending way too much time on your inbox. So spending too much time on your inbox is actually damaging to your productivity. So I asked people at Kaizen how often they check their emails, and it averaged at around 20 times each day, which isn't actually too far from the average professional who looks at their emails 15 times per day. But the most shocking part of it all is that doing this can take up 28% of your working day reading and sharing and answering emails. So that is a shitload of time, especially when we all have so much work to do. So I want to show you what isn't inbox zero, and apologies because it is quite blurry, this image. But essentially, this isn't inbox zero because it's very cluttered. I think you can see that there's about 2,000 emails in there. There are unread emails. There doesn't really seem to be many folders in there for unread. If I was looking at this and had this up on my second screen whilst I was working, like, it would just stress me out so much. And this is essentially what inbox does look like. So very clean, very fresh. And I do like to take a screenshot of it when I achieve it because it is always an amazing feeling. So I'm just going to run through some tips on how to achieve inbox zero. It's just kind of small little elements that you can do each day to clear your inbox and clear your headspace as a result. And they're super simple as well. So the first one is archiving things. So if you don't need it and if you're never going to kind of return to it, get rid of it, archive it. So the types of things that I tend to archive are edit notifications on the likes of Google Docs, calendar invites, obviously once I've responded, monday.com notifications, Google alerts, response source, obviously again, once you've responded or kind of picked up on it, out of offices, and journalists saying no, again, once you've responded, you don't want to be rude. In terms of another tip as well, so there's the 2-minute rule. So if you have an email you can deal with within 2 minutes, reply to it straight away and then action it and get it out of your inbox and headspace. So the types of things that can work under the 2-minute rule will be a client asking you to share a document with them, maybe they've misplaced it. It might be a journalist that's interested and wants to see a press release or has a quick question that you can provide an answer to. Katie, which I actually haven't given any context to, she's our HR specialist who asks you to send over your address details, like you can do that super quick and easy, or responding to a calendar invite. The next button that I want to preach about is snooze. I love snooze. It's amazing. And it's basically emails that you have where you're not going to action them straight away, but you do need to get round to it, whether that is in a day, a couple of hours, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it might be, and just snoozing it so it's out of your inbox, out of your headspace, so you can focus on what is actually important to get done within that day. So the types of things that I tend to snooze are journalist emails that I am waiting to chase. So perhaps I've sent them a story and I've already followed up and they've asked me for something, I've sent it over. So whilst I wait for them to reply, I'll snooze it until exactly the same time the next day. So I can see, right, they haven't replied, I can chase them up now. Internal updates that I need to look through in more detail later. I know that we're always kind of trying to work on our self-development. Sometimes there isn't enough time, so I'll snooze it until like a week later, just so that I don't need to worry about it at that point. Tasks that might involve a wider team and can't yet be actioned. I think that's a huge one. So when you might have something quite important, but if you can't action it yet, it's out of your control, then just get it out of your inbox because it's going to be stressing you out too much. And then also, again, very similar to the journalist, maybe you're replying to a client and waiting for a response from them. Whilst you wait, just snooze it, even if it's for a couple of hours, to get it out of your inbox and clear your head a little bit. And the last one is folders. So there has been an argument that folders actually kind of waste your time because you're so busy organizing everything into folders, and you can find it all in kind of the search bar. For me personally, I love having folders. I split it up by clients, all sorts of things. Now I'm trying to think of things that I have. Pay slips, I've got even an account, a folder for my mortgage. So I've got a couple of personal bits in there as well. But it is just so important to do, and also kind of just keep on track of your clients and what's going on if you ever need to find anything. Tip number 2 then, in terms of work admin and managing your time, is setting realistic deadlines with AM and PM priorities. So at agencies, I feel like our to-do lists are ever like long lasting, ever going, and it's impossible to achieve everything with one day, because also your deadlines are varied. So you might have a deadline that's for next week, so it's not necessarily important to action right now. But physically having your to-do list in front of you and a really big long list can be really distracting and can impact your productivity. So what I tend to do is I grab a separate piece of paper and I write down the 3 key things that I need to achieve in the morning and then before the end of the day. And then I kind of am clear of my overall to-do list if I need to check in with anyone, but actually my priorities are there and there in front of me, and I can purely just focus on those. Tip 3 is as well one of the most important ones that I think a lot of us forget, and it's all about communication. So I think sometimes we're all our worst enemy when it comes to our to-do lists. We have a pile of work on, it's just getting bigger and bigger, and we're trying to keep on top of it, but we're not actually communicating that we're drowning a little bit. So don't forget that you're not on your own. Communicating will help you to be helped. And it'll also aid managing expectations within your team, with the relationship that you have with your manager and also with your clients. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, just voice it, because the beauty of agencies is that we all get stuck in, we all help each other when we need it. And with great colleagues, you can work to take the pressure off. So tip number 4 is sometimes you've just got to let go. So the importance of taking time to train and delegate will benefit you in the long run. So sometimes we're in situations where we think, oh, it would just be quicker if I did it, like I'm too busy, I don't have time to spend checking something or training somebody on something to do something. But this way of thinking is a recipe for burnout, and it will slow down not only kind of the progress that you have with your client, but also your own success. It's just not sustainable. And actually making people accountable and responsible is a really good thing, because you're increasing your team's skills. They're operating at a higher standard, they're becoming more advanced, they're working at a more efficient rate, and essentially you're getting through the workload quicker. So how might this look in a team? So it might be spending time with your team, training them on different areas that they haven't had exposure to. So it could be kind of SEO training, backlink analysis, client comms, decks, ideation, scope outs, all sorts of things like that. I think as well, don't be hesitant to introduce people onto your client calls and servicing, because clients also like to know that there's more than just one of you working on their contract. And then finally, we've got encouraging collaborative working with other colleagues, team leaders and departments. Essentially, you want to drive independence and initiative within your team. So tip number 5, second to last tip, there has been a lot, but it's all around how to reduce your time chasing others. So sometimes I find that I can, like, especially in the past, would be finding myself like spending a majority or a big chunk of my day chasing people for updates on where is this and how many contacts have been sent to this and has this been actioned and are we on time for our project plans. And actually it is just like a really like, it's not the best way to kind of manage your time. So in terms of kind of chasing people, it's important to allocate specific times to not only make yourself feel more organized and on top of everything, but also your team as well. In addition, other things that you can do. So at Kaizen, we have campaigns that spread out across different pods. And so for that, we need to be communicating as much as possible to make sure that actually we're setting realistic expectations, and actually just checking in with other pod meetings, maybe kind of just joining a call once every week, just to find out about workload when people are on annual leave. So you're kind of, managing expectations within the team and with your clients as well. And then my final tip of this talk is you'll save yourself time taking a break seriously. So what we do, it's impressive the amount of things that we're doing on a constant basis. It's so fast paced, it's so intense, and it can be overwhelming. So please just make sure that if you are feeling overwhelmed, take that break that you need. If you need, 10, 20 minutes, half an hour, even an hour, just chat to your manager, you're feeling overwhelmed, and just take that break that you really need, because chances are if you don't, the actual work that you're producing won't be of the standard that you want it to be, and you'll just end up feeling burnt out. So to conclude, so that was a lot of slides and a lot of tips, so thank you for listening. I've just popped again all of my tips in the next 3 slides and broken them down by each section. So just as a quick recap, so we've got investing your time in the right place, always think about the bigger picture and actually what will benefit you in the long run, the headline Slack tester, creating an ad hoc quote bank, thinking about a next steps meeting and catching things in the right time, keeping outreach fresh, outreach one-to-ones that can literally take 5 minutes a week, personalization, don't sweat the small stuff, and dropping a dead campaign. And then in terms of ideation, so express ideations a go, find out the best way people get creative and be flexible around that, create a content inspo channel, news trends are life, and the scope out technique. And then finally, in terms of work time management, thinking about inbox zero, and if you can make your inbox kind of as least stressful as possible, reevaluate your to-do list, look at AM versus PM and what you've got to achieve, communicate, training, delegation and accountability, allocate chasing times, and take a break seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marina. That was a really, really great talk, and I think lots and lots of takeaways for everyone watching today. We are running a little bit over.
Sorry.
So what I am going to do, I'm going to pinpoint anyone to, if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to Marina on Twitter. Is that the best place? I'll let you share where people can find you at.
Yeah. Just drop me a message on Twitter. It's at Marina_Plummer, double M, not with a B. But thank you very much. And hope you enjoyed it and took some tips away from it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Really, really great session. And I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Marina.